தம்பி சந்தோஷ்
சார் ஹலோ
சந்தோஷ்
சொல்லுங்க சார்.
முதல்ல கட் ஆயிடுச்சு, இப்பதான் திரும்ப வருது.
மறுபடியும் தான் சார் ஜாயின் பண்றேன். அதான் சார் சாருக்கு ஃபோன் பண்றேன்.
அப்படியா?
மேடத்துக்கு வர சொல்லுங்க சார், கொஞ்சம் முருகேஸ்வரி மேடத்துக்கு ஒரு கால் பண்ணிடுங்க சார். நான் சாருக்கு பேசுறேன் சார். சார் சந்தோஷ் சார். சார் ஹலோ. Okay, dear all, very good morning and welcome to 1 week national level faculty development program on research methodology, tools and techniques. MV Muthaiya Government Arts College for Women at Dindigul is one of the largest government institution for women in Tamil Nadu. The college was established in July 1966 with a mission of empower rural women in Tamil Nadu. 40 acres of land was donated by Thiru MV Muthaiya Pillai, the founder of Anguvilas Group, for the construction of the college. At present, our college offered 30 UG courses, 9 PG courses and 6 MPhil and 2 PhD programs. Once again, I welcome you all, and now I request Dr. B. Murugeshwari Madam, Convener, Assistant Professor of Department of History, MV Muthaiya Government Arts College for Women, to introduce the resource person.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am, you can speak.
Good morning and very warm welcome to everybody once again. It is my privilege to introduce our today's resource person of this faculty development program. Dr. P. Sivadasan is a professor of history, University of Calicut, Calicut. His area of specialization is modern history and urban studies. He has a unique 24 years of teaching experience in history. He is a prolific contributor to national, international journals and published 49 works. He has served in many administrative positions like former controller of examinations and member of syndicate, University of Calicut. Now he is active in General Secretary in South Indian History Congress, Director IQSC, University of Calicut, member Indian Records Commission, New Delhi, and Dean in Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, Sri Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kerala. His recent publication is Local History of Kerala, Transdisciplinary Investigation of Paramabadu Kavu in 2019. The topic of his talk today is the oral history in historical research. Dear participants, please join me in welcoming Professor Sivadasan sir. Thanking you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Shall I start?
Yes, sir. Wait a minute, sir. I make you as a co-host. Yes, sir. You can proceed, sir.
Okay, just before that, I have to speak a few words, and after that, show my share my screen. Okay.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Uh, Good morning, friends. Warm greetings to all. I am Dr. Shivadasan, teaching modern history at University of Calicut, Kerala. At the very outset, let me thank Muthaiya Government Arts College for Women, Tamil Nadu, for giving me a chance to speak to a larger audience by using this online media about a topic in historical methodology. So I thank in the beginning the organizers of the conference, the coordinator Murugeshwari and Dr. Abbas for inviting me to join with you all in sharing my knowledge of historical research that I have been doing for the last 20 years in various colleges and also at the University Department of Calicut University. So let us go to the topic directly through the PowerPoint presentation. Hello, I have to share my screen.
Screen, sir. Yes, sir.
So is it sharing?
No, sir. No, your screen only sharing, sir. Your PPT, yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
We can visit.
Okay. So
It's visible, sir.
it's okay now.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
You can proceed, sir.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. So the title of my presentation today is Oral History in Historical Research. As all of you know, that the oral history has become an area of historical investigation all over the world today. And it is a discipline which helps us to cross some defects of the conventional historical investigation. For example, those a large number of a big segment of human society is left untouched in our traditional historical documents and also sources. And nobody tried to incorporate them or give them a chance to become part of the making of history in the world in the modern period. By the middle of last century, 1940s, after the Second World War, there arose a new chance because of different problems faced by the human society, and also because of the emergence of new technology, and also because of the changes in the methodology of doing historical research. We can see that oral history began to become a major area of investigation in social sciences. Now we are in the footstep of digital technology revolution. So what is happening to oral history investigation in the age of digital technology and information age is a question to be answered by historians and history scholars today. If you look at the European countries, you can see that it has become a major branch of investigation and also a subject which is accepting and using new technology and new trends in social science research. But when we coming back to our country, we can see that only few scholars are utilizing oral history methodology to enrich their historical investigation by incorporating the memories of the everyday life of the ordinary people. It is only by exploring the life experiences of the ordinary people, we will be in a position to connect our history discipline with the real social life confronted by the ordinary people. So today we are going to see what is oral history and how did this discipline originate, and what are the components of oral history research, and what are the directions to the new history research scholars for quoting our oral history accounts, and also the legal responsibility that we have to undertake when we do oral history research in historical research. Anyway, we are going to cross the disciplinary boundaries that we kept aloof, isolated in our historical research for the past many years. Now we have got a chance to cross all these disciplinaries and connect the real everyday life of the people with historical research, so that we will be in a position to connect the present, the problems of the human population today alive in the society with the past experiences of the people through oral history accounts. So this has become a new opportunity to make our historical investigation more truthful and people connected, and this is to be exploited by history research scholars today widely by using the technology available to us. Part of the introduction of this presentation, we can see that we are living in the age of information technology. But the problem that we confront in the use of information technology is the divide between those people accessible to the technology and also a large segment of people not in a position to access the benefits of information technology. But at the same time, at the higher level, we can see that the IT technologies is used by the elites and the capitalists and richer developed countries to increase their income and also establish their hegemony all over the world. So when we talk about IT technology, we have to understand that digital technology is not accessible to a large segment of people in the world today. But historians now cannot move forward without seeing the changes taking place in the methodology of research and also use of IT technology no long. So that we have to absorb all these things in the history teaching classroom and also in the research hall to make our work more good and more effective and beneficial to the people. So it is in this context we are talking about oral history, which has become a popular discipline in most of the developed countries. You can see large number of books and publications are coming out by utilizing the lived experiences of the people living around us. If you look at a man, look at a human being, you can see that they are carrying with them not only the experiences of their life alone, they are also carrying the life experiences shared by their parents, their relatives, and also those people living around him. So that a man, when he dies, he is carrying a huge amount of information. We were not able to record their voices. We were depending upon the conventional records, archival documents, and pictures, etc. But we could not exploit all these evidences and memories and accounts alive in those people. So we lost a big amount of information in the form of oral history. Now we have to do this work immediately by utilizing all technology available to us to preserve their memory and also to make the life of the people today and also in the coming years better. So in order to cross the difficulties that the ordinary people, the society confront in front of them, we have to utilize the past, utilize the memory of the past generation to cross these difficulties and make life more good. So we see this information technology is giving us a new chance to face the already existing challenges. It was from the 1940s we see the wide use of oral history in social science research, especially in history research and teaching. And by the 1960s, generally we see a major shift in oral history with the coming up of the social history movement and also the digital revolution of the 1990s. So anyway, if you look at the oral history, this gives you a chance to understand what are the weaknesses of the written documents. So the written documents, when you look at or scrutiny those documents available in archival repositories, you can see that these written documents tell you history of the elite people and also history of the society by looking from above. So there was a movement in the 1960s onwards about what is called the history from below approach. Now before that, we were looking at the people from above. So most of the documents available in archival repositories and other documentary institutes were talking about the life of the elites and the rich people and the people with power, or no, in the higher strata of the society. Now we have to look at people from below to upward. So you can see a reverse history of the society. So in order to strengthen that movement, we have to use oral history, which is bringing forward a new possibility of historical investigation of the ordinary people who lived around us. When you go to society, you can see large number of documents in different forms. Here in this picture, can you see the picture? Hello. So in this picture, you can see bamboo plates in which now information was recorded in the old age. So working in the field is a most important thing. Now remaining in the classroom and learning history in the classroom is a difficult thing. So you have to go to the field and you can see huge amount of data preserved in various forms by the ordinary people. Though preserved all these things to confront problems in their daily life. So in order to exploit the history of daily life that existed in the villages and rural areas, and even in the urban spaces, you have to go to the society and collect information now preserved by them in various forms. Here you can see the bamboo plates. And if you go to again to the houses located in the villages and other places, you can collect huge amount of data in different forms. Here in this picture, you can see the field experience, field work done by the Calicut University research scholars, where you can see now paper documents are there. You can see now palm leaf documents are there. Then printed documents are there. Now all these things are preserved by the families, which were very closely connected with their family history. So by exploiting these kinds of documents, you can write history which has closer affinity with the life experiences of the people. So it will become an interesting activity to explain the society, the social life that the people went through. And now I am sharing you a small video which tell you the oral history, the importance of oral history in history teaching.
Sir, hello.
Sivadathan sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a video. That's why it's streaming. Okay, sir.
Okay. Now, was this video or no?
Without audio, sir. That's why we asked.
Okay. No problem. So this video, tell you, this is a small trimmed version of a larger video. We conducted an interview with a freedom fighter. He died 2 days back, and he was telling us the way in which his family and his brothers were involved in the freedom struggle in the 1920s. Actually, he was not a direct participant of that movement, and he heard all these stories from his brothers and his parents. So while speaking about the memory of these experiences, you can see that in some places he's becoming sentimental, and in some places he is keeping silence. Because of the spirit that he preserved regarding the freedom movement and fight against colonialism. So these kinds of video recordings are historical sources which convey us a larger amount of data and hidden meaning of the talks of the experienced people. So this is the benefit of our video oral evidences. Now we have these kinds of technology, and those who are having a small video smartphone with them can do all these oral recordings in video forms. So in the beginning, it was the audio forms. Now we have the facility to take video forms of oral history interviews. So the benefit, if we keep all these things for the posterity for future research, that will benefit benefit all research scholars and future generation to exploit how we resisted colonialism, how we crossed barriers, and how we met difficulties in daily life. Actually, in the mainstream, in the written histories of our society, you can't see the faces of the ordinary people. You can't see the faces of the villagers. You can't see the faces of ordinary women. All these people are facing difficulties in their everyday life, but nobody tried to exploit all these things. Only by exploiting the lives of the ordinary people, you will be able to make history a discipline which is highly useful to the society to cross difficulties. Now, that is the major benefit of oral history. See, a major question that we have to digest when we talk about oral history is, what is it? The term oral history consists of two important things. It is not just the source that we collect, it is the method too. The method of collecting oral history is called oral history, and the output that generate after the method, the oral history document in the form of a text, a video, an audio tape, it is also called oral history. So let us understand that the term oral history means the practice, the method of collecting oral history account, and also the result of the method, the oral history document. So these two documents are entwined together to make the meaning of oral history. So please remember that oral history means the method of collecting oral history, either the interview or doing field work or tape recording, etc. So that is called the method of oral history collection. And as a result of this method, the output is created, the text, the video, the oral account. So these two things join together to represent oral histories, oral history. Generally today, oral historians are using different kinds of words to talk about oral history. Some people call it life story research. When you go to a man and ask him to create the situation and ask him to tell his life, no, definitely he will talk about his life as per the questions generated by the interviewer. So he tells his life. So in some respect, in some realms, oral history is called life story research. But in other realms, it is also called personal testimony research to say about oral history. So when we look at oral history, it is just a description of the life of a human being. The word he spoke, the silences he keep, and the hidden meaning it carries, and the content of his words. All these are questions, and all these documents consist in his interview. So we have to scrutinize, we have to analyze. That will help you to answer different types of questions. What is said? Why did he say so? What is the content? This is a question. And how it is said? People say their experiences in different moods and expressions. So that also represents his justification, his standpoint of seeing things around. So how it is said? Some people smile, some people represent sorrowness, some people become angry. So how it is said is also very important. Why it is said? Some people keep silence regarding certain things. Some people become energetical in saying out certain things. So why these kinds of changes in explaining similar things? Why it is said and what it means? So all these questions can be answered from a single text. See, the possibility of a oral history document for a historian, different groups of historians, they will look at these things in different angles. So when we prepare a oral history document, that will help huge amount of research scholars to do research in different perspectives and angles. So oral histories are in the form of personal reminiscences and structured interviews based upon certain problems, and also recordings of contemporary thoughts. We have to preserve all these documents for posterity and also for future research scholars. How do we preserve these documents? We preserve these oral history documents in the form of audio. Audio recording is very easy today by keeping our mobile phone near the interview. We can also take video recordings and we can also prepare text transcripts for preservation. So all these things are different forms of oral history materials. When we talk about oral history, there are 4 forms of oral history. The first one is the original interview, oral interview. This is the first part of the oral interview, oral collection. We conduct the interview and the process, the whole dynamism is called the first stage, first product called the original oral interview. And after that, we keep the recorded version of the interview. The original text, the recorded thing is the second type. Then along with that, some people may prepare a written transcript. That is also another form of the same document. And in the final stage, we sometimes edit the document in order to remove unwanted parts and also disturbed areas of the videos, etc. So we keep an edited version with all documents and also the title, etc. So in the final stage, we get that. So there is a process of preparing oral history document, the original one, the recorded original one, and the written transcript, and also the edited final material. We preserve the last one, the final edited material, and only when the historian is doing a truthful job, we will be able to carry the same punch that is delivered by the interviewer during the interview. So oral historians have to be behave in a cautious way to make his work very truthful. See, in order to understand what oral history is, how did this discipline originate is very important. Because we started the work in the 1940s in a particular juncture of time, and also we can see the expansion of the subject into different realms. In order to understand the history of the oral history, I suggest you to read a book written by Alastair Thompson and Robert Perks regarding 4 important changes, paradigm shifts in the development of this discipline. So by understanding these 4 stages, by remembering these 4 stages, it is easy for us to understand the different stages of the history of the discipline. Let us go to the first discipline, first area, the origin of the oral history discipline. It was in the 1940s. Think about the period of 1940s. In India, it was a period of famine, then mass disappearance of humanity because of diseases and poverty. And in Europe and other places, after the First World War, the world was passing through severe economic depression. So human generation suffered a lot. They confronted with untold miseries in daily life in the first half of the 20th century. And the peak of that misery happened in the 1940s with the Second World War. So in the Second World War, the European people all over the world experienced miseries. But the miseries of the Europeans were in the supreme level because of wars, fascism of different kinds, the revolutions, and also the exploitation of capitalists, and also the market competition, poverty, famine, etc., etc. So it was in that juncture, social scientists began to see the worries of the people living around them. Naturally, in order to record their worries, the experiences in their daily life, people began to go to the people and record their voices in transcripts and audio form. So it was in the 1940s, there arose the chance for a new discipline in social science and humanities research called oral history. This got strengthened after the Second World War in 1940s. This is called the post-war renaissance of memory. People began to share their memory of depression, poverty, World War, their service to the state, and also the sufferings that they met because of the misguided policies of the state, etc. So the historians of 1940s began to write about the experiences of the people by having connection with their past experiences. Some people living in the 40s were talking about the impact of First World War and the economic depression. So they got the information from their parents, so they began to share those experiences. These began to be archived for posterity. As all of you know, it was in the 1940s, the Annales School in France began to launch a new type of historical writing having close affinity with the experiences of the ordinary people. There is no new trend in historical research also. This is applicable to all social sciences. And this is the first stage. And in the 1970s, when oral history got strengthened, some people in historical convention, historical research called the positivists attacked oral history on account of its subjectivity. The positivist historians since the time of Leopold von Ranke were talking about the sanctity, the truthfulness of documents. Today we understand that documents are giving us a subjective, biased view of the original history. These are not sacred documents. I mean, the written documents, archival documents. Archival documents do speak about the voice of the elite people, those who are having power, those who are having the authority of the state. But no, the life of the ordinary people is totally different from these documents. How can we understand the life of the people, ordinary people who are not seen in these documents? The possibility opened by oral history is that oral history will help you to understand what was the life of the ordinary people. So the positivist historians were not ready to accept oral history because of subjectivity of an oral account. So if you look at now an ordinary people, ordinary man speaking about his life in a village, you can say that he is not telling you one version of history. Today we are living in an age of multiple versions of history, because now each person has his own justification to talk about his version of history, and he has justifications for that. How can we understand this multiplicity of historical attitude versions? It is by exploiting different types of attitude, we will be able to understand an objective history. Documents will not give you the sanctified, the sacred history of humanity. Documents are speaking about one version of history. Okay, to understand the other version, go to the village, ask people, and they will give you. Sometimes no, their memories are subject to bias and also personal versions. Okay, no, that is a problem of the objectivity. That was attacked by positives in the 1970s. Naturally, oral historians began to take a precaution to defend this criticism, and they became more accurate, more scientific, and also they began to keep legal documents, etc. That was the second shift. And in the 1980s, we see oral historian became a scientific historian. He began to follow interdisciplinary approach, and he began to keep the original interview, and also he began to keep the legal document, etc. So this interdisciplinary approach made oral history more acceptable. And if you look at the television channels, radio programs, etc., we depend upon the original words of the interviewer or the subject person than the written document today. So that is the increased relevance of oral history today. And in the final stage, we see the digital revolution, the coming up of newer technology to record the voices and also the audios of the ordinary people. So let us go to the, talk about the first stage, the paradigm shift of 1940s, the post-war Renaissance period. It was, as I told earlier, it was a period of misery and poverty and diseases of the people because of the wide gap between the richer nations and the poor nations. So because of the coming up of newer trends in historical research, people like large number of people, especially in French historians, began to have this kind of new kind of attitude called annals history, the subaltern approach, etc., is looking at history from below, etc., etc. Okay, so the people began to doubt the sanctity of primary written documents, documentary source approach in history. They began to give importance to marginalized people and the oral evidences shared by them. Naturally, we began to understand the dark, we began to shed light to the dark area of human society by that period. And a new equipment of 1940s, which helped people to record the voices of ordinary people, was the tape recorder. The appearance of tape recorder made oral history generally acceptable to humanity. It was in this period a historian in America called Alan Nevins now came forward with a new branch of historical investigation called oral history. Alan Nevins was looking at history from above. So he tried to record the life of the elite people in the society, the French president, etc., etc. And he has written a pocket history of USA. It tells you the history of USA from the angle of the upper classes. That was a new trend inaugurated by Alan Nevins. His name is very important in the history of oral history research. In 1960s, we see again this was taken up by social historians. Unlike Alan Nevins, social historians in UK undertook history not by looking from above but looking from below. Or they went to the ordinary working classes, people living in the urban slums, etc., and began to tap history from them. A classical example for this is the work of E.P. Thompson. He studied about the working classes in Britain in the 18th and 19th century, and he has written a book called The Making of the Working Class. This was part of the history from below. So a major methodology used by social historians in the 1960s was oral history to talk about the life of the ordinary people. Thus, what happened? The voice of the ordinary people began to get recorded. Till that time, we were not able to identify ordinary people, poor people in archival records. But by the beginning of oral history, we began to see the faces of the ordinary people in society. So through oral history, we mean interviewing eyewitness participants and also who got information from different generation regarding past events, where we can see in historical reconstruction, we explore events of the past from the people. So in olden days, there was a practice of collecting oral history. If you look at the Greek, ancient Greek historian Herodotus and Thucydides, you might have seen they going to the people and recording their voices to talk about the war between Greeks and Persians, and also more scientifically by Thucydides to talk about the Peloponnesian War. So today we are not, we are also doing the same thing, but differently. What is the difference? Some scholars are going to the people, part of their research problem identified. So they ask certain particular questions to people and collect their answers. And at another level, what generally oral historians do, they collect a huge amount of comprehensive information from a person and record that their voice or videograph their saying and keep it for coming generation of research scholars. So this is the difference that we see from the ancient period to the modern period. So we can see by the first stage the appearance of oral history in the post-Second World War period in 1940s. Alan Nevins and others did it in US, and we see the same branch began to develop in Britain and Scandinavia, and by that time richer countries began to use oral history to give employment to people. One major incident connected with the development of oral history in the Western world is New Deal federal project designed by the American government. So during the period of depression in between two world wars, and also during the Second World War and the post-World War period, the US government employed unemployed artists, writers, etc. To collect oral history, because the US and the European countries had faced severe crisis during these two world wars. So the people were in a position to share their experiences for posterity. So in order to record the voice of the people lived at that time, the government pumped huge amount of money to collect oral history. So this is the secret behind the emergence of the discipline in a fabulous way, in a fantastic way in the European world and America. So they pumped huge amount of money to social scientists and also freelancers and also the unemployed people to record oral history. So they went to the village and prepared the document. What happened? Thousands of Americans were interviewed and recorded, and they preserved the document for posterity. So that helped today now historians in America today to use all these recorded materials of the World War and economic depression period for studies today. We haven't done that because we at that time was subject to colonialism and we were facing severe poverty and economic problems, and naturally there was no initiative from the side of the government to collect our oral history. And in the post-independent period also, the government did not try in that way to collect oral history of the freedom fighters. Large number of freedom fighters disappeared from the earth even in the 1980s and 1990s. We did not record them. We failed to hear their voices. We now study the freedom movement, the national movement from the written records. We have lost now plenty of information that tells you how in our village the freedom struggle and the history passed during the period of colonialism. Now we are not in a position to now see them. Even now there are people having the memories, the experiences of the freedom struggle and also the experiences of post-independent India. So it is high time for scholars, history students, research scholars to go to the people and record them comprehensively. Not in a limited manner, not in a narrow manner, but in a comprehensive way, and do it scientifically and prepare those documents in various forms, text, video, and audio, and keep all these documents with scientific titles and legal documents in your college library, in your university library, and keep it as an oral history archives and do research, and also let the future researchers to use it in different angles. So in America, as a result of this New Deal federal project, we can see about 6,000 people were employed. Now the government was giving employment to unemployed people. 6,000 people were given employment, and as a result 10,000 women and men were documented. All of them, there was a chance of not in recording the voices of all these people, but it was the government which did this thing. In 1948, as I said earlier, in Columbia University, Allen Nevins, he inaugurated the elite version of oral history collection. He started the Columbia Center for Oral History, and as a result, it became a rich discipline. Recording, transcribing, and preserving things, oral history things, became very important. I will show you now. There may be problem of voice. I will show you a documentary appeared in 1955, prepared by Allen Nevins. Allen Nevins, as you know, prepared a document about a fascist cruelty in Germany under the name Night and Fog. You can see the film, a short film having 40 minutes, something like that length in YouTube. It tells you how fascism was treating human society in a cruel way during the Second World War, during the time of Nazism. Now, this was also a chance generated by oral history. Oral history gave you direct evidence about fascist cruelty. Now, that was a possibility of the post-World War period. See the video, maybe problems, might have been problem, audio problem. this video is talking about the concentration camps, and they are recording video footages of those who escaped from these concentration camps. They are telling us what a Nazist and fascist government will do when they get power, and what are the miseries under fascist regimes, etc. So the documentary is talking about the transportation of innocent people to unknown jails and camps in a foggy night, and it became a world famous documentary of 1955 done by Alan Resnick. So the lengthy video is available in YouTube. So the conservative criticism, no, that was the trend created in the first stage in the post-World War period. And in the second period, second paradigm shift, we can see that the criticism raised by positivists regarding the reliability of memory and the bias involved in the accounts of shared by ordinary people. So there is a possibility of distortion of events in oral accounts. That is because of the history scholars say that it is because of the physical deterioration of memory due to age and also personal bias of the interviewer, etc. By analyzing all these documents in a critical and scientific way, we will be able to understand the distortion involved in such accounts. So there are methods to save all these accounts from myths to facts. This is to be followed very strictly by oral historian. So that was a counter activity of oral historians to challenge the criticism raised by positive historians of that period. They were following the conventional method. See, as a result, oral historians began to develop what is called the scientific methodology to prove the reliability of oral accounts. It was in this second stage we see the social history movement of the 1960s. Annals and the school called history from below approach, etc., became very popular among social scientists. So they began to utilize the tapping of the voices of the ordinary people. As a result, where the oral history became much influential in history research in the 1960s. In that trend, we began to move away from the conventional methodology of looking at political history and also economic trends. And we also became successful in ending the neglect of the individual in society. So the people, the historians, by using oral history methodology, began to approach the working classes and also those involved in the labor movement, etc., to share the experience, to talk about the true labor movement, the true daily life of the people. Thus, social history, historical sociology, etc., empowered oral history, and also helped historians to rescue the voices of the laboring people in countries like UK. Here you can see a text written by E.P. Thompson, which went through tens of editions, the making of the English working class. And he went to the people, he lived with the people to record their voices, and he published this book, which is a major work in the field of social history. And then let us go to the third paradigm shifts. This was the same period of attack against oral history. So we began to talk about, oral historians began to talk about crossing disciplinary barriers. We began to follow interdisciplinary approach to save oral history from criticism. Memory, narrative, identity, etc., personal identity of the person, etc., became aspects of investigation in social history. Thus, memory received a pioneer place in historical category. Memory is also a relative term, a relative idea. Memory depends upon the person, he expresses his history and voice. So naturally, it is to be scrutinized to understand the general history. So we began to use different approaches: narrative, linguistic, cultural, analytic, ethnographic in oral history research. in this period, in 1970s, we see oral history became an important discipline in academic institutes like universities, where a leading person who undertook the movement was Paul Thompson. Paul Thompson wrote a book called The Voice of the Past in 1978. The Voice of the Past helped us to strengthen the theories of oral history. How oral history can be theoretically viewed was explained by Paul Thompson. It was also linked with what is called the history from below approach. He began to talk about the recovery approach of oral history. Recovery approach means recovering the voices of the general public in historical investigation. That was not done by the conventional histories. So we began to see several phases who were hidden from history in our historical works and texts, and also historical sources. We began to give voice to the voiceless. We began to raise consciousness, and the result is empowering the ordinary people. The ordinary people are much empowered because of these kinds of historical investigation. The duty of history scholars today in India is empowering the ordinary people by sharing the past experiences of the ordinary people. That will enable them to get strengthened, to fight obstacles, to cross barriers in ordinary life. So you can see now history actually is empowering the ordinary people. Here we have to undertake that work in a better spirit by giving focus to oral history. This is the book written by Paul Thompson to tell about the scientific aspect of oral history. He theorized the oral history discipline and gave us methods to research oral history in history. And in the fourth stage, we see the appearance of email and internet. And this facility gives us to share our experience without physical barriers, physical affinities. So that is a new chance to enlarge the scope of oral history, and we have digital technology with us. Digital technology has transformed the ways of oral history. See, digital technology helps us the method of recording. We can use multiple
Sir,